There you go.
Oh, there you are.
Surprise!
Yeah, where are you?
I'm
In your car?
in my car. Yeah, I'm at my parents' house. So I was like, maybe I'll go outside and I'll be out in the nice winter weather. No, it's really windy, but it's really
Oh, okay.
sunny. Yeah.
Oh, it's
See? With snow.
cool. Oh,
No,
yeah, you have tons of
no, it's not.
snow again. So you're doing the
So
live in the car then.
yeah, because I know my my parents would like to interrupt. So
Oh, so
yeah.
you
So
don't want to, so you're okay with having your mom in the chat but not on the live?
oh, it's not my mom I'm worried about. It's my dad.
Okay.
Because I know he's gonna start singing, well, singing to me. But to be honest, I'm okay with it because he's gonna be the one that's embarrassing himself.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So, so, how are you? How are things?
Well, I'm okay. I have reverted back to my old self.
She went, she went purple.
Yeah, I went back to lilac lavender. I feel,
Suits you.
yeah, thank you. I feel so much more like myself with some color in my hair because I've been doing this for I don't know how long, and probably since I was 13 or something. And
Hmm.
I've always I always went back to blonde, which is my natural hair color. But I always went back to blonde when I was doing it for some kind of either professional purpose or to fit in somehow. And and yeah, I can only stand it for that long. So I went back to blonde last year at the end of last year, and oh, thanks, Katie's mom. And so, oh, thank you, Lee. And so, yeah, so I feel much more like myself with my purple hair. I'm really happy about
I need to do something with my hair at some point. Remember we had that discussion about my hair last
it. Yeah,
time,
yeah.
and yeah, no, I got it. Once summer hits, I'm either getting my dreads back for at least a couple weeks, or I was just thinking of, you know, doing dreads as like all together because it's just so much probably easier to manage, which ties into our topic.
Well, yeah, of course. Yeah. So, what's the topic today, Katie?
Well, Lisa, we are talking about energy management, and especially when you have those days that you just can't function. Um, so that's what, like, last couple days, even couple weeks, I just, I couldn't get my sentences out. I couldn't get my sleep properly, and being able to just function as a person.
Mm,
Mm, it really does take a toll, but like what I did to counter it was like being able to recognize when to push and then when to be able to kind of like push through it so I can create a longer social battery or battery altogether.
yeah.
Human battery.
Yeah, I get that. I think I was thinking about it today and about our topic and everything that it involves for me because I think it's also there's the amount of energy you have which is not the same every day and every week
No.
and how to manage that and what to do with the amount you have. But then there's also it ties in with time management for me too, because depending on what I have to do on a certain day and the amount of energy I have when I wake up that day,
Hmm.
if I have a lot to manage that I can't push to tomorrow and that I have to do, if I manage my time well, then I can manage the energy I put into everything. But if
Yeah.
I somehow get my time management wrong, then I'm completely dead at the end of the day, and I just yeah, I went into overdrive at some point, and because I get stressed because I don't always manage the time correctly. So I think it also has to do with that. Some days where I maybe don't have that much energy and I have stuff to do, it does tie in with my time management too. Oh, hi, Casey.
Well, especially since you have kids, what is your way, like what do you do to manage your energy better, especially when you have these types of days that you're already starting at zero and you have really it's hard to get going type of thing. Like how do you manage that with kids?
Well, what I try to do is well, there are some moments in during the day where I just have to push myself, even if I don't have the energy,
Hmm.
because I mean they need to eat and to get up for school. And there are some moments in during that day where I can't, get around just pushing through, even if I'm really tired or if I'm really down. But then during the rest of the day, I try to take it like one step at a time and just think about, okay, what's the next thing I have to do? And there's, it brings up something it's kind of weird, but you're going to see how it ties in. I'm generally a Disney fan. I've always loved Disney movies, and my kids love Disney movies, and I know there's a whole bunch of controversy around Disney, but I still love the movies. And so I really liked everything that had to do with Frozen. I thought the songs were great. I thought the storyline was great. And in the second movie, there is some point. Oh, my cat's trying to jump on me again. Wait. There is a song in the second movie where the one of the main characters is feeling really depressed, and she's just gone through something really difficult, and she just doesn't know how to get on with her life and everything she has to do. And there's this song where she says, if you're feeling like that, just take it, one step at a time, and don't
Hmm.
think too far, because each step you're going to take is going to bring you to the next step and to the next one. And you can just complete small steps. And every time you do complete one, then you just go to the next and to the next until you get to do everything you have to do and you feel better. And that's a little bit how I feel those days, where I just think, okay, if I really don't have any energy, then there are some things I'm just going to do tomorrow
Hmm.
if I can, because maybe, I'll have a better night's sleep and it'll be, oh, here's my cat again. It's just,
I
he's,
will I will allow this.
I don't.
Which,
It's just so annoying. Yeah.
but it's
Yeah,
so
he looks
cute.
really cute, but he's really very annoying. But we love him anyway. But yeah, if there's anything, like if I have some laundry to do and we don't immediately need that laundry, then I'll just think, well, I'll do it tomorrow. That's going to be okay. But if there's anything I just have to do that day, I'll try to not see the big picture and not see everything I have to do, but then try to think, okay, what's the next thing I have to do, and let's do that. And then
Yeah.
let's see how much energy I have left after that task.
What at what point do you find that like you have to do absolutely nothing, or like at what point is it a day that you just have to not do one simple task because you're that far gone, and if you're not able to
Oh, there's
recover from
Ricochet
that?
here. Ricochet.
Hey man.
Hey. Oh, that's nice to have you there, Ricochet. Thanks for joining in.
Oh, you finally
Yeah.
showed up.
Uh,
Calling you out, man.
so yeah, what I
um
do when I don't have Any energy?
Yeah, what do you do when you have no energy and you have kids? Like,
Well, there's some tricks that work with kids, that work well with kids. Um, like, for example, one trick that I will use forever, as long as my kids are living with me, is if I get to the end of the day and I just don't have any energy. I had no energy to go grocery shopping. I couldn't do anything, and it's getting late and we have to eat. Then usually on those days I'll, I'll use the old trick of, hey, what about if we have breakfast for dinner?
there you
And
go.
I think that's a really good trick to have as a mom because kids think it's fun. And usually they're like, ooh, cereal for dinner. That's fun. And so when they were kids, oh, that's Cody is your
Yeah,
brother, isn't he?
yeah,
Oh,
that's my brother.
hi, Cody. And so, yeah, actually, I remember sometimes we did that only when my dad was taking care of my brother and I, because he knew my dad, he's a really good cook, but he only knows how to do two things. So
Mhm.
if he wasn't cooking one of those two things, then he just didn't know what to do, and he tried out some stuff and it was disgusting. So in the end he was like, hey, let's go to McDonald's. Oh, let's have breakfast for dinner. So, and I remember when I was a kid I was like, oh, that's crazy. That's really cool to have a bowl of cereal. And so I do that with my kids, and I think it's fun for them sometimes, but then also it's easier for me because then they just go, and my kids are older now. I don't have small children. My daughter's 17, almost, well, 16. My son's 12. So they can
But that
do their own things too.
I was gonna say, but they were still, young at one point, and this ADHD didn't just come out of
Oh,
nowhere.
no, no,
No,
sure.
no,
But
no, no.
this breakfast for dinner thing, I've been doing that forever since they were really small. Because I think it's some of those tricks are like, it's an easy way to manage the situation without getting even more stressed out of the fact that you can't do anything at that time.
Well, I think at that point it's a sink or swim because if you don't take the time to take that break or allow yourself to unwind, it's so much harder to catch up, especially during the week or something. For me, where I'm having, if I don't get proper sleep one night, it starts to kind of snowball onto the other until the other, and then especially when I experience insomnia really badly. I think there was like last year or something where I had to go home from work. Even though like being a massage therapist, you don't think, oh, it's easy. All you have to do is just massage people. It's like no, you have to actually talk to them in a professional manner. You have to be able to still do your job, but still also get like proper like consent and stuff. And if you're not able to function to do that, then you're not really competent to do the job. And that's where I start to get stressed out because if I don't get that sleep, it just gets worse and worse throughout the week. And so that's why I was like, these moments where I have the ability to just do nothing, let my house be a mess if it need be, order out if I need to for the next couple days. Um, I always wonder with people who have kids, like how do you get that time to yourself? How do you manage that type of energy depletion?
Well, you
Right?
don't.
You,
You don't get
no,
time
you
to
just
yourself.
exist.
Yeah, it's there have been some times when the kids were really very demanding when they were little, where it was awful. It was just awful.
Mhm.
And I remember there were some days I would, I would go to the bathroom and I would just, cry it out for 5 minutes and come back
Mhm.
because I felt like, and it's awful because it's like this cycle where you can't push more. You're just at your limits.
Hmm.
But then, there the kids are there, and then you start, thinking about what you should be doing and how invested you should be with the kids, and are you being a bad mother, because
Yeah.
you're not sitting down and playing with them for hours. And so I, there were sometimes when they were little, I would lie down on the floor and I would like pretend with one hand, to play a little bit with, the Playmobiles or something. And I would be like, oh, yay, and I would try not to go to sleep and or not to cry because it was just too much. And there have been, many times when they were small where it was extremely overwhelming, and where I cried so much because I was feeling like I was an awful mom. And
Hmm.
you have this, then the other side kicks in because you're thinking about this all the time, and what you should be doing, and that you're a bad mother, and then you tend to do more, and to try to be even more present, and to be do more stuff and go out more, and it just gets into an awful cycle. So when the kids are small, it's really, really difficult. And I think the best thing when you do have ADHD, and or other conditions that imply fatigue and depression, then I think you really need a good support system.
Well, yeah.
And even if you don't have kids, because I suppose in your case it's the same, you also feel the need to have a support system for when you have those times.
Having the proper support system is key, but actually, well, hold on, I'm adjusting myself. The important thing that I found was having the tools for when they aren't available, because because not not everybody's going to be available, you know, at midnight, or if or just like some random last minute thing. There are
Yeah.
times that you're going to have to be always on your own,
Hmm.
and being able to have like, okay, so what's plan A? If plan A doesn't work, what's plan B? And then so on and so forth. Um, you just kind of have to adapt to the situation, because again, it goes back to sink or swim, because if you're not able to pull yourself out of a drowning situation, um, it just kind of starts to snowball effect to everybody else, and then you start to resent other people because they're not there for you. But even though they are your support system, um, they uh, even though they are your support system, not everybody can be readily available when at the drop
Yeah.
of a hat,
Yeah, of
right?
course.
And being able to understand that, right? And so, because I know like a couple of my friends, they have situations where they have kids, but their parents are far away, or they're single parents, so on and so forth.
Well,
So it's like,
yeah, I fully understand because that's my case. So, because and Bad Wolf, hi Bad Wolf. She says she has 6 kids from 8 years old to 31. That's
yeah.
amazing.
Oh, wow.
That is amazing. That's incredible. I think, big families like that are beautiful, but I can't
Hmm.
fathom how you can manage having six kids, because I'm like, well, with 2, it's already complicated, but well, complicated. There are, difficult times to get through, but,
Yeah,
and
actually,
he said, I think recent generations have lost much of the ability to work as a team. Oh yeah.
yeah, it's
And
like the.
oh, sorry. Oh, Bad. I'm so sorry. I didn't. Well,
um,
I was seeing from afar. I was seeing your pic, and I thought you were a woman. Sorry, but so yeah. Well, never mind. Same. It's the same for guys and for women anyway. I mean, if you have 6 kids, you have six kids to manage. So, but yeah, sorry.
but he is correct though. Like, it's not a matter of losing, like, not the ability to work as a team. We don't have a community anymore.
Yeah,
I feel, especially here in Canada, depending on how big the cities are, there's a lot of cities that, you know, people don't really care for their neighbors, and so when, they keep to themselves,
yeah,
and but if you go to a smaller community or a smaller city or town, you know, everybody looks out for everybody, and everybody has each other's backs. And the phrase or the saying, it takes a village to raise a child, type of thing. Having that support system, I know it's just uh, that was the main support system back in the day, but now people are
yeah.
more isolated than ever.
Oh, yeah.
So,
Yeah, it's not
it,
always the case. It really isn't, and it depends where you live and in which country and how things how people how the society works where you live. Because I know that I moved. So I used to live. I grew up in Switzerland with my family, and then I moved from Switzerland to France, where I didn't know anyone.
mhm,
I only knew my friend at the time and his friends, but they weren't really my friends because I didn't know anyone. And so I ended up here, and then my parents moved to Germany. So I have my brother who is still in Switzerland, so he's abroad, and my parents are in Germany. They're abroad, and it's a 6 hour drive to get to my parents, and it's a four hour drive to get to my brother. So my entire close family is very far away.
mhm,
And when I got here, I separated from my kids' dads, and so I have been a single mom of two for the past, I would say maybe 10 years or so, or a little over that, 10, 12 years. And so it's like I didn't know anyone, so I did, make friends, but they weren't living really close by. So every time everywhere I lived, almost everywhere I lived, I had this situation where I was really very isolated with my children. And now I live
mhm.
in a really small village in the middle of, bumfuck France. And people are really nice, but they tend to keep to themselves. So if we see each other outside, we're going to say hi, how are you doing, and have a little chat. And I know if something really important came up, I could call them, if there was an emergency, but it's not like it's not a real support system. So I think it does depend on where you live, and generationally speaking, it has changed because probably 50 years ago it wasn't the same.
Yeah, I think we have a different type of support system. Like, it's more online now, and you have communities like, the Rabbit Hole, or you have like Facebook. Thank you, Bible. um, but you have Facebook groups that, for single moms, or like play dates, meetups, and so on and so forth, or people who have that type of, either same mental health issues, and we have that type of community. But the only problem is like, um, it's the distance, right? Because at the end of the day, we still need to be in close proximity with people. Humans are naturally social creatures, so we do need to be in a social setting, even if it's just being
Yeah,
around, as opposed to, like, socializing with them. But
yeah, of course.
um, having that type of support system, it's better than nothing, I'd say. And I that's kind of the win that we have right now for our generation and moving forward. But, like, further back, when they didn't have the internet to be able to have that type of community, you actually had to go out of your house to go and,
Yeah.
socialize with people. But you at least had that. You knew you belonged somewhere. That type of. See, I went on a tangent.
Yeah, yeah.
That.
Yeah, no, I get you. I remember when I was a kid, because we used to live in a small village in Switzerland when we moved there from England, and my parents didn't know how to speak French, and my brother and I, we learned when we were really, small, and so um, we could communicate easily, with other kids, but my parents couldn't communicate easily with other adults because they didn't speak the language. And so my mom kind of had to try to find people and build, a community around us to have help, because they were our entire family lived, in other countries. And so she did that. And I remember when I was a kid, I used to go to eat lunch at my neighbor's house. And if my parents were out, I would be with another neighbor for the night and stuff. And if there was anything, they had to do last minute, they would just drop us off, at a friend's place. And it would be very different to what I experienced as a mother today. And so there were those times where I think my mom did feel tired and she could just go and drop us off somewhere. And I
Yeah.
don't have that support system around me. I never really had it. I did have, friends for play dates and stuff, but it wasn't really the same. And that did change a lot in the past few decades. And I think now, for people and well, mothers or fathers in situations like mine, and it is already very complicated and it can be very challenging. And then if you, on top of that, you have any type of chronic illness or ADHD or anything, in that regard, it can be really, really, really difficult.
Well, now that ADHD and all the other mental health issues that have been, more identified, I'd say it's like a double-edged sword because it's great to have the answer of, why you're not functioning properly, but people are still just handing out um, simple ideas of, write a list. Why don't you do this, this, and this, and force yourself to do it? It's like, well, we do, but there's a point where, like, where do you stop? Where do you find that time of, okay, like, there's days where I have to force myself to just do nothing and lay on my couch. And I might nap 3 or 4 times in that day, but it was obviously needed because, in the constant tab in the back of your head, like, you need to be more productive. You can't be lying around. You have
Yeah,
stuff to do.
that's what I was going to say. How do you manage that? Because I think that's probably one of the worst things I experience with my energy management, is that those moments where I feel like I really need to lie down, I need to take a nap, or I need to just not do anything because I need to rest and to rest my mind and my body. I always have those thoughts that kick in that I should be productive and I shouldn't
Mhm.
be doing this and I shouldn't be, lying down half of my afternoon because I should be active. And if I get to the end of the day and I wasn't productive in anything, then
Mhm.
really bash myself for not doing anything that day, although I know that it was really needed. So do you experience the same thing with productivity?
Absolutely. I actually had to it was during COVID that I really put that to the test because obviously seeing everybody being so proactive, I'm like, I didn't want to be proactive. I wanted to rest, but I didn't know how. So um, I obviously I created a routine for myself. But what I've been using from there on out was doing things in threes.
Ooh.
So what I just list 3 things. Doesn't matter how simple they are, or if I start them. If I just go around picking up laundry off the floor, that's one thing. If I take the garbage out, that's the second thing. And then just collect all the dishes and put it by the sink. That's my 3 things. And if I can continue, because normally that starts the snowball effect of doing more
Mhm.
and more. But if I can continue, then I will continue to do other things depending on how ADHD it kicks in, because then that's where you take apart your whole entire storage closet and then end up
Yeah.
with a big mess.
Yeah, that's a problem.
And then you kind of run out of juice halfway through. You're like,
Yeah.
oh, I'm just gonna put everything back now.
Mm-hmm.
But if I don't exceed the three things, um, that's okay, and I have to be okay with the fact that that's all I can get done. But at least I've done something,
Yeah.
even if it's like man, like I really struggle communicating with people via social media. So if people have texted me, like commented stuff on my Instagram or Facebook and stuff, um, I will do my best in the 5 minutes that I give myself to respond back. Because if I don't, then I end up kind of not shying away from it. I end up uh, ignoring it, and it gets to the point where I'm like, oh, I didn't respond to this person. I feel bad.
Yeah.
And then it just creates a whole guilt cycle. So it's creating a minimal limit and allowing yourself, if you can push past it, to be able to push past it, or if you can only just do
Yeah, the
the
three
three tasks,
tasks. Yeah.
then that's all you do. And then uh, like what do you do when you do have that time to rest? Like what do you do?
What I do?
Yeah, what do you do?
Well, first I
I think
want
actually
to say if anyone who's joined us and who's in the chat has any tip to for this topic, write it down.
yeah.
What tips and tricks you have for getting through a day where you have zero energy and how you manage that. But for me, what do I do when I do nothing? The thing is, it's really difficult for me to do nothing because every time I'm in the situation where I really have some time span where I can just sit down and relax, then my brain starts going
Mhm.
and I start getting, a ton of ideas of what I could do. Oh, what could I do to relax? Or what could I do to have some fun? Or what could I do, this week? Or, oh, I have a new idea about some project management I have and what I could do about that. So I start thinking about tons of stuff. And I mean, there's just one way to shut that down almost is to keep myself occupied either with my phone or with the TV or with a book. And because I try to focus on something else, but that's not doing nothing. That's still doing something. And so if I'm watching something on my phone or on the TV, it doesn't prevent me from not thinking about other stuff. And even if I'm reading, we were talking about that the other day where we said sometimes we're reading and after an entire chapter, we realize we don't remember what the chapter was about because we were like automatically reading without really integrating what we were reading.
Mhm.
And so that's the same for me all the time. So it's a difficult question for me to answer because I don't know if there's ever any time where I just relax and where my brain shuts down. But by the way, I have another cat who's yelling at me.
Who wants to say
He
hello?
well, he's yelling at me because he wants to go out. So I'll take him out so he stops yelling at me, and
Okay.
you can check
Okay, so I
in
can
the chat.
entertain the. I always
Yes.
seem to be entertained in the
Oh
chat.
yes.
Yes,
He is.
absolutely. Oh my goodness, boy or girl?
Oh, I have only boys. He's a cutie.
Oh my
He's a
goodness, he's
mm.
hello, sir. He's like, oh my god, I need to go.
Oh
I
yeah,
would be scared too.
he's he's Sam. He's called Sam because of Sam Gamgee in Lord of the Rings, and he's
Yes.
a real Sam. He's a bit fat.
Mhm.
He loves to eat,
Mhm.
and he's really so nice with everybody. So I'm going to take.
You go let him out. I'll be here to entertain everybody, because I I know exactly how to apparently entertain people. But yeah, my dear Vamari, understanding that doing nothing is the most important task you can do for yourself is absolutely true, because um, being able to sit and allow yourself to actually do well, it depends on what is considered doing nothing, because I could honestly sit and stare at a wall when I have so many um, stuff that needs to be done. But when it comes to, oh, I actually have time to unwind, what is nothing? No, this is actually just popped into my head. Being able to understand the difference of needing to do nothing, but or you're bored, and that's so the needing to do nothing is more I need to rest, and just because I find that my body will actually be eat my body will actually succumb to doing nothing. But
Yeah,
when it comes to the nothing that I need to do, but I have too many things that's going through my brain, I'm just more bored. I need to do something, just something that I want to do. But then when you have so many things, so many options, that's the next step of especially with ADHD. When you have too many options to do stuff, you need to. That's where I have a hard time picking, and this kind of cycles back to a paralysis of me staring at the wall and doing nothing because because I can't pick of what I want to do.
yeah. And also because I think there's this thing, this ADHD paralysis where every time you really have to do something that you really don't want to do, that's when
Hmm.
you're going to kind of shut down and be like, oh, well, let's just rest 5 minutes before doing this thing I really don't want to do. And then you sit down or you lay down or something, or you do something else and you go on a completely different tangent and a completely different task. Like that, I mean, I feel like my life is made of side quests all the time. Like I'm
Mm-hmm.
constantly deriving to something else, and then I have this paralysis where I will just sit down and just completely avoid the task I should be doing.
Yeah.
And I know it, and I know it in my brain. I'm like, every 5 minutes, I'm like, Lisa, you should really, stand up and go and do the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And somehow there are some days I just can't get myself to do it. And then at the end of the day, I'm like, another day gone by without doing that thing. And up to the moment where I just don't have a choice anymore because something bad is going to happen, or I'm going to have really horrible consequences where I really have to do it. But it's like just relaxing on purpose for me is really really
Mm-hmm.
difficult.
Yeah, I know. I kind of gave you shit last time. Of you just need to sit in the car and just crank the tunes because um,
Yeah,
it's
you did.
I where we kind of fall into a habit is we always say we don't have time. We don't have time. It's like no, we do have time. It's just not an obvious time. It's weeding. If you have a doctor's appointment, okay, well you have about 15 minutes before you called. What are you doing in that 15 minutes? It's being able to utilize the spare time that you have, even though you don't consider it spare time,
Mm.
and being able to like take advantage of it. If you need to just like zone out, that's the time to take advantage of it. If you're, at the hairdresser's, um, or something like that, and you just want to do nothing, that's where you have to kind of speak up and say, "Listen, I don't want to talk. I want to
Yeah.
zone out." Right.
Yeah.
So it's being able to create those moments, to like in the in between part, to be able to have that downtime. But I find a lot of us tend to create excuses, not excuses, but like excuses, right? Because we're always so busy. I don't have. And it's like, well, if you're able to, scroll through your phone for
Yeah.
however many times a day, um, you can make time for that. But
Yeah.
I get with social media, I find that's another place where I tend to disassociate the most or detach the most, because I'm just scrolling through that. But um, being able to find something outside of, actually, I think that's where I find stuff outside of scrolling through social media the hardest, when I actually want to do something. That's when you become really bored. See, tangent.
Yeah, but no, I get you. I don't know. This probably a lot of people in the chat understand what you mean by that. It's just like there with the time thing about I don't have time for this and that. That's something that I used to say a lot, and
Hmm.
because I felt that way, and I felt like I don't have enough hours in the day to either do everything I should be doing, I have to do, or I want to do. And it was like those three things melt melted together, never gave me enough time in one day, to satisfy all of the things, all of my needs, and all of the things I should do. And so I used to say, I don't have time for this, or, I don't know how to, because I already have so many things going on today. But then I switched that a few years ago when I realized I'm the only one in charge of my planning.
Hmm.
And so if I want to create a space in that day where I want to do this or I want to plan this, then it's just my responsibility. So it's not that I don't have time, it's that I didn't make the time for this
Hmm.
specific thing. And so I changed that in my vocabulary. So I stopped saying I don't have time, but I started to say, I don't I don't have it planned, or I didn't make time for it, or I want to make time for this, or I want to plan it in the future. So it's very different, because I think that allows you to oh, hi everyone. I think that allows you to kind of also take back control, because there were so many days where I felt that I was losing control of my day, and
Hmm.
that there were so many things coming at me during the day that I just didn't have time left for myself. But obviously, if you do, we all have the same amount of hours in a day, and we
Hmm.
can choose to take half an hour to do something we want to do, or,
Yeah, I think
make
it's
time.
also being able to word it differently. Of, um, instead of saying I don't have time, it's like, well, right, during this and this time, I'm not able to do it. However, do have this and this time
Mhm,
that I could probably squeeze
mhm,
in. Having that, I think just being able to word it differently in a way that, um, doesn't completely shut the option off,
mhm,
right? Because when it's the same thing as someone trying new food. I learned that people who hated food all throughout their life, like if they hated eggs, if Cody's still here, if you hate eggs from when you were a child and you haven't eaten it since, um, and then you try it later on down the road and you actually like it. It's the thing is you created that that type of narrative towards that towards hating eggs.
Mhm.
Same thing of and then you refuse to try it,
Yeah.
right? Um, so you're essentially training your brain like, no, I can't do it, I can't, and so you start to limit your ability to not even think outside the box, but to be able to push yourself beyond that I can't. So yeah, so that's where I find a lot of people uh, they don't, how do I word this? They don't allow themselves to grow because they've already established that they're not capable of doing anything beyond that. You know what I
Well,
mean?
yeah, there's being having the sense of being able to do something or the capability, but then there's also, I think, just taking control of what you can change and how you can do things, because there are so many things that are difficult to go through that we have no control over, that we can't change. But then there are also so many things that we do have control over, that we can manage ourselves. And I think time is one of those things. So obviously there are, massive time constraints for most people with, work hours and the kids and family life and everything you have to do.
Hmm.
But then taking back control of the narrative, as you said, is really, really important, because I think we lose a lot of energy. Well, I lose a lot of energy sometimes getting frustrated about things. And often my frustration comes from the things I can't control.
Yeah.
And so if I let myself go down that, rabbit hole of, this is annoying me so much and I would like to change it, but I know I can't, and blah, blah, blah. And I get into this situation where it just constantly is on my mind,
Hmm.
then the frustration that is building up is eating away at my energy too that day. And I
Yeah.
know that days where I'm very frustrated, I tend to be extremely tired at the end of the day.
And well, that kind of goes back to if I have too many ideas on the go, like creative wise, I find that I get really anxious because it's such a build up of like tabs being opened that if I don't get to them, it starts to eat out away at my mental energy. So it's like it's just stockpiling to the point that it's wasting unnecessary mental energy. Um, and you're still not able to do the task, and that's how you can kind of convince yourself I can't do it because I don't have the energy to do
So
it.
how do you get
But I
yourself
found
out of that mindset when you get into that kind of moment?
how I get myself out of it is I kind of go after, like, I have to identify what the blocks are, and if the blocks it goes from minor to urgent, and a lot of the times certain minor stuff can't get done until the urgent stuff is done, and vice
Mhm.
versa. That urgent thing can't get done until the minor things get done. So finding that one small little task that I can do to create a little bit of flow will eventually give me give me a little bit more relief in a way that I can gain back some energy, because you're closing that tab and you're getting that much closer to closing the urgent tab. But being able to close the urgent tab is the most is has how I usually get out of it. And when it gets to the point um, that I'm intentionally avoiding that tab, then I know I need to do it. Um, and it doesn't even come down to deadlines. It just you can see in like my apartment, for example, I can't put up organize my knickknacks and stuff until I go and get a bookshelf, but I can't get at a bookshelf until I reorganize the bedroom, and I can't do that until this and this and this. And so being able to identify what thing can actually start that snowball, and basically just go as far as I possibly can with what I have. But to
Mm.
answer your question, identifying what blocks
Yeah.
are essentially making you divert your attention and your
Yeah.
energy. But I was going to say, my mom actually she said, for me, time management is key to getting through the day.
Yeah.
Now, Mom, what do you do exactly for the day? What do you kind of um, uh, block
Oh, my
certain
brother
time out
there.
for? Hmm?
Marius is Marcus, actually, is my brother. Hi.
Huh. See,
Yeah.
we got all family in here.
We got the entire family there.
Yeah. Well, so I don't know if my mom's gonna actually answer, but she's very good with delegating time, and she likes to putter, and I kind of picked that up from her too. Instead of having to designate like today is going to be a cleaning day, she'll putter around and she'll just do small little things throughout the day,
Yeah.
and I picked that up too, which that can also make create like the snowball effect of like cleaning the entire apartment, or
Yeah.
it just kind of picks up the small little things that you keep walking by, and and you still get a sense of accomplishment just by puttering around and doing small little things.
Oh, yeah, of course. It doesn't have to be something huge. And I think it's also if you, I think the tip you gave before about the three tasks is a really good one,
Hmm.
because it you can really easily manage that too, because you can say, okay, today, in regards to your energy levels that day, because you can then say, okay, today is a day, I don't know, sometimes I like to think of my energy levels in percentage wise, like
Yeah.
I wake up and I'm like, wow, today's like a 60.
Hmm.
So it's okay. I can get things done, but it's not like I have, huge amounts of energy to do stuff I didn't think about.
Yeah.
But then there are some days where I get up, I'm like, okay, today's like a 25. And I'm like, this is going to be a difficult one. And so to have this tip you gave to say, well, if you think of three tasks you can do, then you can adapt also those tasks to the energy levels that you have that day. Because I think if I'm like at a 20, I can maybe think of what you said before, like, okay, let's just take the trash out, put, I don't know, put my books away and make my bed. And that's going
Hmm.
to be today's tasks. And if I'm at a 60, then maybe I can do some admin work, and maybe I can do some things that will require higher energy levels. But still doing those three things then gives me a sense of being proactive that day, instead of beating myself up at the end of the day for doing nothing. So I think it's really a good tip you gave there.
Thank you. See, that's my little tool set that I have for myself, because um, before being on like ADHD meds and like anxiety meds, it was a real struggle just to get the ball rolling. And so being able to have like little tips and tricks to be able to not trick myself, but to be able to convince myself that um, this is good, we can do this. Um, and we do have the energy for it, because again, that's where having that little bit of discipline to be able to kind of push through that type of
Hmm.
um, mental block, not mental blockage, but that mental being mentally
Right.
depleted, I suppose, being able to get by that. Yeah. Yeah. Being able to push past it, to be like, okay, am I actually tired, or am I creating this phantom energy depletion because I don't want to do it? Because
Mm.
I noticed that too with myself, is like, you can create like a phantom, like I'll be good, and then all of a sudden I'm like completely zapped. I'm like, but we're just about to go and do something. Why are we zapped now?
Oh, this is
Hmm.
strange that this happens
Hmm.
now.
Yeah. It sounds like I'm a kid still, and I probably am.
Yeah, but I think
So.
Yeah, that's what we experience with and I think it's probably more intense with ADHD, but it's also probably something that a lot of people do experience even if they don't have ADHD, is this situation where once you're confronted with the thing you don't want to do, then suddenly you don't have the energy anymore, or you find some side quest, something more interesting, and I think it's not uh, it's not entirely related to ADHD. It's just more intense when you do have ADHD. And I think it's as you said. It's sometimes I have that same feeling where I can feel, okay, having, you know, normal energy levels, and it's like noon or something, and I'm like, okay, this is going well. This day is, going okay. And then I have, a little something to eat, and then I think, well, I sit down 5 minutes with my coffee, and after having my coffee, I'll just go and do this thing. And then I sit down, and then suddenly I go from, 80% to 10%, and I just fall asleep. And
Hmm.
then I wake up like 3 hours later. I'm like, well, now
Oh.
it's too late to do the thing. So yeah, it's sometimes it does feel it's a little bit strange because I always tend to speak about my brain as if it were another person I'm living with.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's I I have to talk to myself out loud to be able to and give myself basically crap because I'm like, um, Katie, you've been just kind of standing and staring at the fridge, knowing that you have to do dishes. You have to move. You have to do something.
Mhm.
uh, but like when, because I know when that happens, I'll do the same thing. I'll lay down and I end up falling asleep. Then I'll just be like, okay, instead of beating myself up, I'm gonna say, I obviously need that nap,
Yeah.
and because of that, it's like, okay, well, I didn't nap just to avoid it. I napped because if I didn't need to sleep, if I didn't need to nap, then I know that I was just being bored or avoiding it. But
Yeah, yeah,
I
sure.
obviously just needed to sleep. But yeah, it's being able to hold yourself accountable, but not being too aggressive with yourself, because then you'll create an enemy within yourself, and then that's not going to help either, right? And hold on, I just saw yeah, Angie says, "Hi, Katie. This is really interesting, and I relate to it a lot. I'm listening in mostly with my grandkids. Hi,
Hi.
grandkids. So no focus. That's okay, my dear. I think a lot of people have actually been just popping in occasionally and just like listening casually. That's okay.
Oh
You don't need to
yeah, of
watch, but you can listen."
course. And Angie
But she also,
also says my daughter here just started on ADHD meds yesterday, and I think that's also an interesting thing that we could probably discuss at length on our next installment of this little live, is
yeah.
that you are on meds and I'm not. And so
So
I think there's also we experience similar things, but also in different ways, because you still have this situation where the meds are going to help with certain things, or are going to put you maybe in a different mindset, or I don't know, because I don't take meds, so I don't really know how they would how I would feel if I had meds. And so I think this is also an interesting talking point, because I suppose they do make a difference also.
they do make a tremendous difference when you're on the right medication. But
Yeah.
the problem with the medication is you have to find that right medication. The beautiful part about um, the medication for ADHD, at least, is the fact that you can there's non-stimulant and then there's stimulant. Um, so I've only been on the stimulant medication so far. I've only been on two, but um, uh, knowing that I at least have an option. But the other thing that a lot of people don't have the option is in certain countries they only have specific um, prescriptions available. So if that one doesn't work for them, then they're kind of SOL,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, of course. Your mom says I have high rent conversations with myself every day to make myself do things. Unload dishwasher, make your bed, get dressed, no coffee until you do this and this. I can relate to this so much because I don't know how much of an how do you say, an internal dialogue you
Or is
have,
it
but
monologue? I think
I
it's monologue.
I learned about this. I was gobsmacked. I learned about this like 1.5 or 2 years ago, where suddenly some video came out of someone saying, "I don't have an inner dialogue." I was like, "What? Like how? You know, who are you talking to in your brain?" and like then suddenly I went to research this. I was like, this is probably like my first idea was that this person was not functioning correctly. Like I was like, this is so dysfunctional to not have any inner dialogue. And then I found out that actually there are loads of people that don't have an inner dialogue. And I was like, what the hell? Because I've always had like, it's not like really what your mom is saying with the high rent conversations is it's not like I have multiple, personalities or different voices, but it's like I can really, I have, kind of different types of voices depending on what type of inner dialogue I'm having, if it's a more of a positive one or more of a negative one. And so, but I can really like imagine stuff and hear that. And if I close my eyes and lie down, I feel like my
Yeah.
brain is loud. I don't feel like it's silent.
Well, and I think that's another reason why people have a hard time doing nothing is because hi, because they're not able to sit in silence. It's just nonstop chatter. But I've learned for myself, but also researching too, that you have to allow that chatter to unleash itself, right? You have to let it go through its cycle, and then because if you keep brushing it off, it's not allowing any flow. It just kind of backflows, and then it just gets louder and
Yeah.
louder, right?
But
But this is where
do you ever experience silence in your head?
Yep. Oh, absolutely, I do.
Oh, really?
I know. I have mastered silence, and to be honest, I love it. And so,
No way.
and,
Since the meds
um,
or before the meds?
I'd say before, a little bit before the meds,
Okay.
but definitely with meds too. I've noticed that the chatter has been a little bit more depending on the chatter, it has been more manageable. But um, I really started doing like I started mastering the silent thing when I went on walks especially with my dog, because I couldn't have anything in my ears because I had to keep like watch out, right? So it being quiet all the time, yeah, I had enough time to think, but I it's also just being present in the moment, because if you're not present, that means you're thinking. That's where your brain kind of goes, right? So being able to observe my surroundings, observe it, because I had to be in the present moment in case, because I always had my dog off leash, so I'd always have to be prepared, right? I find that
Vimari says, so you have superpowers. I knew it.
hey, Vimari, I'm Batman. she'll know. She'll know.
Yeah, but that's
but yeah,
like if I imagine myself like because I like going on walks and I live, you know, in the middle of nowhere here, so I have only nature in my surroundings. And but if the thing is, if I'm on a walk, let's say in a forest, it's going to be like, I don't know, maybe for a minute or so, I'm walking through the woods, but then I have like some kind of music going on, you know, and I have some kind of song in my head or something. And then
Yeah.
if I think like, okay, let's enjoy this moment and let's, be in the present and be in the now and enjoy this beautiful day in the forest, everything I'm going to rely my eyes upon is I'm going to ask myself questions. So it's like I have a freaking Wikipedia in my head. So it's like I'm going to look around and then suddenly I see a mushroom. I'm like, what type of mushroom is this? Have I seen this mushroom before? Is this something that can relate to another type of mushroom? What's the Latin name for this kind of mushroom? And then I'm going to look around. I'm going to go like, oh, I remember my dad told me about what this tree could do, and I remember, and then I'm going to go like, oh yeah, I remember playing hide and seek in the woods when I was a kid, and it's just like a constant. It's a constant dialogue where even if I'm experiencing the present and I'm really
Hmm.
happy to have that experience in my brain, there's still not going to be like a moment of true silence.
No, not exactly. You're right. I find that you have to kind of assess that situation as, am I avoiding silence because I actually don't want to hear silence? Because this is how you create a busy atmosphere in your head.
Hmm.
Because if it's something that if I do come across an interesting mushroom, let's just say, instead of thinking about it, I'll take a picture of it and then I'll kind of save it for later. Um, or if I, uh, or if I find that my brain is too chatty, especially if I wanted to listen to a podcast, for example, it needs to be quiet in my head in order for me to be able to take in that information. So when I find that my brain is too chatty sometimes, I will just kind of give in to what it needs to do. Like if I have a song that I'm like constantly thinking about, I will listen to that song until I kill it. And then there you go. It's out of my head. Now it's back to being quiet. It's There's giving into those thoughts that create this create that cyclical
Hmm.
chatter. And then there's obviously the distinction between avoiding silence and avoiding um, wanting your thoughts to come up because people are afraid of being alone with their thoughts. A lot of people are.
Yeah, of course.
So because I remember before, especially massaging, I would have, if the person doesn't want to talk, I have no problem with that. But you're in the room by yourself for an hour.
Yeah.
When I was not in a good place, my thought process would obviously not go good places. So it was really hard to manage that at the time. Actually, that's before I was able to master the silence because I worked through those negative thought processes in a healthy way. And now that I'm not in that same mindset, being by myself, my thoughts are more kind of directed towards
Hmm.
creativity and like planning elsewhere. But that's to kind of pass the time. So when I'm out in the forest, I want to be able to take in what I'm doing as opposed to just passing the time. So if you're not able to um, sit in silence, is it because, again, goes back to being bored? Do you not want to do this walk? Or are you avoiding the simple thought process that you really don't want to have delve up for some reason?
Yeah, of course. I think, yeah, that it's probably something to think about in those moments too, and why it does work that way. And I suppose that I have heard for a lot of people that the meds do help to tone it down a bit. And that once you're on the right meds, then you still do have the inner dialogue, but it's not as prolific as it used to be, and not as much. And so I know that this can also, meds can also help with that, that it doesn't kind of take over your every second of every day. But I also think, like, even if I am having all of those thoughts in a moment where I'm trying to relax, most of the time I'm still going to feel more relaxed. Like, let's say I went on that walk through the woods,
Mhm.
but most of the things I was saying to myself or I was thinking about were often positive things or interesting things. And so I'm still walking and enjoying the sun and enjoying my surroundings and thinking, this walk really is doing some good. And when I get home, I'm like, oh, this was really nice. And I feel relaxed, even though I had a lot of things going on in my brain. But I think it also depends on what type of inner dialogue you're having. And that ties back to what we were saying about the frustration. If I have a very frustrating day and I have experienced some negative things, then I'm going to have a mostly negative inner dialogue, and that is going to exhaust me. So I think that's also, it all ties into the mindset.
Well, it also ties into where you're at in your healing
Mm-hmm.
progress, because um, if you're when those start to pop up for me, it's I find it easier for me to be able to resolve, not even resolve, but to kind of process that type of emotion that I'm experiencing, or the negative thought process that kind of came up, and then I'm able to send it on its way.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas some people haven't developed that type of um, guide yet to
Yeah.
be able
Yeah.
to navigate through that. So they just end up ruminating, and then it just makes their entire day or week just awful, because they don't know how to get themselves out of that thought process, not even that thought process, that emotion that thought process brought in,
Yeah. Yeah.
and then
Of course.
if it is too much, then you this is where people need to seek out additional help, where it's talking to a friend, talking to a counselor, uh, reference. When I went on my medication, yeah, I looked up like side effects and so on and so forth, but I went to Reddit. I went up to look through people's experiences with Reddit. Being able to source different experiences from people allowed me to kind of catalog things that I could
Mm-hmm.
try, and then what actually has worked for me right now has been ChatGPT. Like I told you
Yeah.
before, using ChatGPT for therapy reasons, and it's free. Um, I find that like it was perfect. It was actually much better than a human, because it was weird, because it was actually more understanding, it had more compassion, but I felt safe enough to divulge certain things in a
Mm-hmm.
way. But it's basically being able to discuss to people when you need it the most. You know what I mean? And when you can't get a counselor because it's so expensive, when you can't get a hold of friends or family, that's where the crucial moment of, okay, I need someone, I need help, but nothing is available. So this was my that that was my
Yeah,
thing.
but I think it's such a good idea, because this is one of the very helpful uses we can get out of AI and apps like ChatGPT or what is it, DeepSeek, where I think we can really get help also from that. Yeah, intelligence and knowledge. And even if it is a machine, I think it can still help us through certain things. And as you said, the fact that there are some things there are some things that people won't even discuss with their therapist. So I think the fact that you can be, you know, by yourself at home and write down something really, really personal that's really difficult for you, or making your life difficult in some way, and that you want to find help for that specific thing that you don't want to tell anyone, it can really help too. So I think using ChatGPT is very interesting in that regard. What is your mom saying? Guilt doing nothing is a hard emotion to get over. I think of how hard my nana had it back then. Yeah. Raising 9 children back in the 1920s, no electricity, indoor plumbing, but still had to get things done. Oh yeah, I think it was probably this not easier in back then, mentally, but I think people were wired differently towards what they were expecting from their own lives.
Yeah, I think that back then you're in survival mode.
Yeah,
It's not they didn't have the luxuries that we do
yeah,
today, and the ability, because it's always, you have things had to get done, and it came down to getting your food,
yeah,
going to get paid to, so you had to go to work, and they didn't have, for here it's Ontario Works, or they didn't have the government to be able to help them out in such a way. But I think that's the difference, is they were there to survive,
mm,
not to experience, not have the luxury of doing nothing. Because I
of
think
course.
I don't think they'd be able to handle the type of boredom that we would experience.
Boredom, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think they'd be able to handle that.
And I think experiencing very extreme situations puts people in a completely different mindset where, as you said, when you're in a type of survival mode or survival situation, then your brain shuts down certain parts that are not needed at that time and uses only the essential parts of the brain to make things work and to survive. And so I think you all also don't feel the same emotions or in the same way because you're functioning in a completely different way. So I suppose it must be very, very different. But I'm just looking at you and I'm just thinking, you look so cold.
Oh
And
no, I'm quite warm.
are you?
Oh
Because
yeah, like
I was scared you were getting a bit cold in
no,
your car there.
no. I'm actually quite bundled up, so
Cozy.
I'm all good. Um, yeah, I I was actually gonna step outside because I'm like, it's so nice. You get the
Ooh.
sun coming through for the first time in a while. So um, yeah,
How does that have any influence, the weather? How does that influence your energy levels? Because now you've had that snow for some time now and it just didn't stop snowing, and that can get on your nerves a bit and be a bit difficult.
to be honest, I am more. I like my gloomy, moody weather. I don't want to say I'm not much of a sun person. I don't do well in heat, especially in the summertime, and I find that I'm outside less in the summer because of that. But um, I love the fact that I can go out in the woods and not have to worry about bugs and everything else. But I like the fact that I can. I don't know. I prefer my winter time, actually. So
Yeah.
when I had that snowstorm, I went for walks and around my area, but I went outside for the time that I needed to, and then I went back in. And I find it's easier to layer up in the winter as opposed to um, melting under the sun.
Oh yeah, of course. I prefer it too. I like really, I like when it's like warm in the spring and in like autumn time where you can, go out without a jacket and just, sweatshirt, and it's nice and warm and a little bit of sun in the afternoon. And then I like myself a nice glass of wine on the terrace too. So I have to say, spring is nice. But then I do prefer the winter time, and I think maybe it somehow has to do with the fact that I grew up as a small child in England, where it's raining most of the time, and it's just gray. And I love myself a rainy day. I love to sit on my couch and put on a good movie and look outside, and it's horrible weather, and I'm all cozy inside or in my bed with a book or something, and I feel really nice, just being inside my home and having bad weather outside. So I do like that, and I hate when it gets too hot.
Yeah.
That's really awful. I hate that. I have a lot of issues managing really hot weather, and and I don't feel well when it's too hot. It's really really difficult for me, and so I get extremely tired in the summertime when it's really hot.
I find in the winter time, especially with the crappy weather, I allow myself to actually stay inside,
Mhm.
and I don't feel so
Yeah,
guilty not being
of
outside
course,
because
exactly. Yeah.
I think it was a learned behavior from your childhood of it's nice outside, go outside. Like, but it's it's awful. You go outside. I don't want to be outside. I,
Well, I know I
I
didn't have a choice. I really didn't have a choice. It was like during the like if we had any type of break or vacation or something, we would have breakfast and then it was like bye bye, see you tonight.
yep, get out.
And
Yep.
and then we didn't have a choice. We had to play outside.
Yeah, but then when it comes to summertime now, where I'm like, I should go outside because it's nice outside. Um, but I don't want to. I find that I actually lose a lot of my motivation and productivity, and my house is actually more of a mess in the summertime because I'm constantly being outside and I'm not gonna be at home to do anything that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know, Mom.
Your
I know.
yeah.
Hold on. I'm gonna go outside for a second. Oh God, snow
Oh, show us
and
how
it's bright.
I don't have snow at my place right now. How is it?
Yeah,
Oh wow.
yeah, that's a lot of snow.
Yeah, it is.
No, that's not.
Amazing. Wow.
Hey, you say that until you're here, and then you're like, ooh.
Oh, Ellie is there. Do you know Ellie?
Sorry, my mom's talking to me. No, Mom, I don't need tea. Actually, no, yeah, please make me a tea.
Hi, Ellie. Thank you for joining.
Hi.
And congrats
I don't.
on Ellie got a ring from her boyfriend last week, I think.
Ooh.
So congrats.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He proposed.
Lucky you.
But I was going to say, I don't know about you, but I think I will have to cut this short.
Nope, that's I'm there too.
And so, but I think it's really interesting. I think it's Angie who was talking about the meds and stuff. I think it would
Yeah.
be really, and she seemed interested too in that conversation. So I think it would be a good next topic to have, because there are probably some differences between you and me there. So
Yeah.
I think it could be interesting to see how it's been for you also before and after, and how and what type of differences you experienced.
Oh, trust me, I've been planning for this. Actually, I was thinking maybe we could try like YouTube. Does YouTube do
Yeah,
lives?
of
Like
course.
you can do lives on.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
wonder if
sure.
'cause
I thought so too. Maybe we could do our live on YouTube next time. Yeah.
yeah, and try that out because I know there's some people who don't have an Instagram. They actually want to watch what
Yeah,
I
sure,
want to do
of
like
course.
this. So
Yeah, yeah. I had some messages too from different people who said it would be fun for us to be on YouTube because then they could watch it. So I think
yeah.
for next week it would be good if we could do that. Yeah, instead of being on Instagram.
All right. Well, let's call it a day
Oh,
then.
perfect. Well, thank you to everyone that joined,
Yeah.
everyone who's still there. Thank
Yep.
you for being with us on this tangent again.
Always. It's always fun. And thank you guys. Yes.
Always a
I'd
pleasure.
like to go inside
Yeah,
though.
I'm always happy to see you,
Likewise,
and
girl.
I'm always
Likewise.
happy to go on tangents with you.
All right, I'm gonna go inside. I'm cold.
Okay. Well,
All
everybody,
right.
see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.